Hey, I'm Simon. I'm here in the Morning Brew studio in New York. And today we're doing a Simon React to the Morning Brew Sanity Studio. And I'm here with Emily and Erin.
Hey, Simon. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Excited to show you our studio.
I'm excited.
In the
too.
studio.
In the studio. It's the studios all the way down.
Studios everywhere. Awesome. So very excited to show you our newsletter production. So we have two Sanity studios. Our first is our editorial studio that we call Astra. And our second is our ad studio that we call Meteor. So right now we are in Astra, and we're going to walk you through how we produce our daily newsletter, which goes out to over 4 million people every day. This is the product that most people know Morning Brew for. So excited to show you how the sausage gets made. Awesome. So turning to one of our newsletters, I'm just going to open up a preview pane so that you can see us editing in live view. This newsletter preview that we're showing you on the right is brought to you by a custom component or a connection that our engineering team built to preview the newsletter in real time. So we have an email service that we connect to. So hopping down, there are a couple of key components to how we produce the newsletter. You see the authors, our amazing editorial team that appear right here on the right, controlled by the authors selector. And there are a couple of very cool things. So our top blurb right here, we're just going to hijack this and we're going to say Simon is here. Close that out and post haste. It should show up right here. Awesome.
Live.
So we can see the live editing right in the newsletter editor. Another cool part of the newsletter that our audiences really rely on and get a ton of information from is this market section. We built this API in partnership with Yahoo Finance. And so we're able to pull year-to-date, 1 year, and the previous day's markets data. We can hop in and maybe, there's NVIDIA, but also let's check on our friends at Meta. So we're changing the ticker name, and then we have this custom action that can pull markets data. So it reaches out, does an API call, and this markets data is getting updated. And you see the markets data has updated in real time and gives us a change day over day, a brief visual indicator, and this is a great part. The newsletter as a whole is sort of comprised of lots of different content types. So we have the top blurb, we have the markets data, and then we have a couple of different other content types. We have newsletter stories that are created by our editorial team, published on the web, but these are very brief snippets of what's going on around the world as it relates to business news. We also have newsletter sections that are not necessarily full stories, but instead snippets or sort of like quick hits on what's going on.
So these are only for the newsletter?
Exactly. Solely produced for the newsletter. These are not published on the web, just in the context of the newsletter. And then we also have ads, which Erin will demo a little bit more, but the ads are inserted right into the newsletter controlled by our ads team. And so we have all of the news here. And then when we are ready to push this to our ESP, we can publish the newsletter. We have a fun little action that says, one moment while I make a single but very loaded nacho. We need to keep it light and fun as we do. And then so what this will do is it will send the HTML to our ESP, create a new campaign. That
ESP is a email
send provider, email service provider. We partner with Sailthrough, and we can either manually send this to Sailthrough now, to enable the editorial team just to skip a couple of steps, and then the email gets sent directly from Sailthrough. But this is how the sausage gets made.
And you have multiple newsletters, so like all of them are run from the studio, or
all of them are run from the studio. So actually, if I can hop over here and close this pane, so these are all of our newsletters that go out that are all created in a very similar way. For example, HR Brew does not have a market section. It has its own specific sections, but they're all created using the same components. Newsletter stories, newsletter sections, ads. We also have promo sections that can be reused that are created by our audience team, created once, and then they can reuse them over and over. Same with our share sections.
And each of the newsletters have their own kind of homepage, their own kind of marketing landing page?
Yes, they have their own homepage, their own web presence. So, for example, here's HR.
Right.
Here's HR Brew's homepage with a lot of its originally reported content, its latest stories, editors' picks. HR Brew also has events, in-person and virtual events. Obviously, our newsletter product. We have resources for those folks making business decisions, and then some key stories around focus topics from that brand. So every brand has a web presence.
Exactly, and this is all run from inside the studio. And like, if you decide to launch a new newsletter, that sounds like that could be pretty easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Each of these sections are either feeds from content that's most recently published, or they can be curated. But the management of this entire homepage and also the content that appears in the navigation is also controlled from the Sanity Studio.
Exactly. It's amazing.
Yeah, and if you want to know a little
Yeah.
behind how that actually works, we have a couple different references that we use. So we have domains, and then we have franchises, and they're almost one and the same, but they're once upon a time we had a few different franchises, so a few different publications that maybe belonged to one domain. So that's sort of the only reason that that's set up that way. But Emily, actually, yeah, if you hop back over here, you can see in addition to the newsletters, we have stories right here, and stories are referenced, we reference a brand from the story editor, and that's how we kind of distribute it to the correct website.
So the stories in this context are the actual stories in the newsletter.
Yeah, so these are stories written that can either be distributed via a newsletter. They all appear on the web, but it's sort of the central kernel of content that can then show up in multiple places.
Right. And you also manage the events, or at least like editorialize the events here?
We manage our event marketing pages here. So we're able to show, let's see here. Here's a sports marketing playbook event that's coming up. Let's preview this as well.
Yeah, this is actually one area that's kind of under construction right now.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that
Preview.
This is live.
Yeah, no, the previews actually are being updated by Matt as we speak, and this is actually one that's created. This is iframed in from Saros mostly as we are working through updating a bunch of our components.
Yeah. But like at least you have this is all integrated.
Yeah,
So
so
like
all integrated, and what it lets us do then is to on the websites we can promote and kind of feature events that are coming up on the website. So again, just kind of using the sort of structured data model, just pulling certain snippets, certain pieces of information, highlighting that on the homepage. And then, we've got the full marketing page off to the, in its own route over there. So kind of lets us...
Are the events always attached to a specific brand, or
Yes.
are they sometimes cross-promoted?
They are. That's a challenge for the product team right now. We have a few events that are coming up that are associated with brands that don't really have a web presence. So brands that are podcast first, for instance, we're kind of working out where do those live now that they're starting to do more.
I have a proposal.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we do too. We're just trying to get there on the roadmap. But I think, that's looking ahead to sort of what we're going to be doing in the studio. To date, this has kind of mostly been focused on the two majorly core parts of the business. So that's the newsletter and the websites. But we are starting to slowly integrate more of our other media types into the studio as well. So we've got some plans in the works for podcast landing pages that'll be part of the studio as well, and give a home for some of these other cross-promotional events. If it gives them the ability to spin up a newsletter if they wanted to create a newsletter that kind of goes along with the podcast. So we're working through some of those things, and yeah, it's just great to know we've already got a place to put it.
So where does the branded content appear to me as an editor in the newsletter? Because like you said, it's not created here, it's a separate workflow.
It's in a separate studio. So we can actually, I can hand this over to Erin, and she can show you how the content, where and how the content is created. But at the end of it, I'll give you a little...
Yeah, so then we're going to...
Yes, so we'll show you...
Turn here.
Yes, so we showed you
Thought this through.
that an ad shows up in the newsletter, and so now we're going to show you how that ad shows up in the newsletter.
And just to kind of give you that orientation, we've got here this IndaCloud ad. You'll see that it appears as part of this array of the content here. and then the preview of it over here. So what you'd see if you look here, you would not be able to edit it right here. It's a reference
Just a
back
reference.
to the ad that's been created in Meteor. So if we look at Meteor and sort of how this works, we've set up kind of a custom dashboard for this because we use this as a workflow tool as well. So I'm looking at kind of a, actually, let me go to all placements here because I want some up-to-date ads. If I were on the ad creation team, my initial view, I could see all of my placements, but because nothing has been assigned to me specifically here, I don't have anything here. If we look at the work of the entire team, you'll see everything that is upcoming. And this kind of gives our ads team a view of sort of where each of the ads that's being created, where it is in terms of the creation workflow. So we've got our custom statuses here. You can see at a glance who the team working on the ad is. So if you've got a question about something or if you've noticed something amiss, you can kind of quickly get in touch with the right folks. You were asking about how...
To be clear to the people watching at home, like this is all custom built by you.
Yes.
This is not
Custom
out-of-the-box
built.
features.
No, but using the Sanity UI.
So it was pretty easy to build.
Yes, it was, yeah. So this also, we're able to filter really quickly. So actually, I'll show you one example here that I wanted to kind of point out one of the features of this tool. So we can look at, for example, the Bloomreach partner. So we can see the date that the ad's going to be running. We can see the managers can create a partner due date. So if for instance, some of our partners have extra long approval timelines, they can kind of customize when that due date is and kind of help their teams know when to have certain things ready.
When to work hard, yeah.
Yeah. And we'll just look at one. It looks like a draft has been sent already. So from here, we get right into the where the ad actually is created. So we're doing a bunch of things on this schema here. So we're setting who is this for, and again, taking structured content very much to heart. We have a place in here where we set up our partners and then associate our ads with the partner, so we're not repeating that multiple times. We've got a couple settings for sort of the management part of this. Are they going to receive an email at status changes? How do we keep them in the loop as we're working on this? What franchise does this go in? Where should it appear? And this is what kind of creates the trigger to push the ad to the specific newsletter date. So this is kind of how that's getting.
So as an editor of the newsletter, I don't need to worry about figuring out what ad goes out. That will just be already there for me.
It shows up there because of this.
Yeah.
Like push that thing. It's like waiting
Exactly.
for me, and I'm adding my content already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting.
So drafting an ad here actually creates we call it a newsletter shell, sort of the draft newsletter by, as soon as an ad is created, it means the newsletter edition's ready to start editing as well.
So actually, like before someone buys the placement, there is no newsletter.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Theoretically it exists.
Cool.
So all of this sort of management stuff here, it's also where we're using this lovely grouping feature to kind of set things like the roles on the team. So this is where those assignments show up. It also connects the team. So people are being pinged via Slack when something is assigned to them, and when once it's been assigned to them at various stages as the ad moves through the process. We've got some other really cool things up here where we're kind of collecting some assets from the partner. So we kind of make a little creative brief with a custom view up here. They love Google Docs, so we're actually bringing a Google Doc in here, and then.
Have you had a look at Sanity Create yet?
We have. It's definitely something to consider. It's one of those on the docket decisions to make. But going back over to this ad placement, this is where you actually. But I want it to be a Bloomreach. There we go. So add content here. We can override a couple of the defaults just in terms of how that shows up. Add copy, add art, all of that is in here. Also, a bunch of metadata that is also part of our reporting feedback loop. So we track performance and report back to our partners. And this kind of helps us keep track of the trends, like an ad with...
What's a different KPI that you could have?
So we've got a few options. This is how we kind of focus our sales team and the creative team as well. So they know what this ad is meant to do.
Yeah.
It's part of that creative brief.
Is it the CTA or the messaging that is kind of the important part here?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
The goal of the ads, that when we look back and we see how this ad performed, it can be compared to other ads that had the same goal.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So that's sort of a brief little tour here. And again, kind of just an example, a quick example of how the sort of interconnectedness of the data and the structured content has really been powerful for us. So this ad is part of it's for Bloomreach, our partner Bloomreach. So now we're looking at the document for Bloomreach. So this is where we can edit a bunch of stuff for them specifically.
This is like for every time you mention Bloomreach in the context of being sponsored.
Exactly.
This is the content.
So we, one place to set a logo, one place to sort of, correct the spelling of the name whenever it's going to appear in text and all of that. And one kind of custom component that we built here, we work with partners with logos of all kinds of aspect ratios. And that makes it pretty hard to have like a consistent size that we want to use for a logo, because you might have something that's really horizontal that if we said, maximum width 150 pixels.
No, it's like 7 pixels tall.
Exactly. So we need that to be somewhat customizable.
Yeah.
But we also want the non-technical ad creation team to be able to manage that on their own. So we built this little slider that lets you preview it in context. Also to show you.
Yeah, right, because it goes next to your actual just normal type, so you need to see.
Yeah.
There's no way to automate, at least before, like that would be like an AI use case, I guess. Don't you see?
It could be. But this was our.
But it seems like overkill.
Yeah.
Use actual intelligence for this one.
Exactly. Yeah. So with your eye, you can kind of
You can match the text sizes.
Yeah. And we liked this preview and the slider as a way to handle it, as opposed to just trying to guess what size you want for a team.
So like in a couple of newsletters, we get it right. Like,
Exactly.
That's so cool.
And you can also preview on dark mode, which is how so many of our audience members
Yeah.
consume the content.
So this is where you discover that Bloomreach is actually invisible in dark mode?
That's what I was going to say. If I were their account manager, I might suggest that we
Add some little bit of a halo on that.
And it's still an oversight sometimes. So we want to make sure that it's great for the user, but it's also successful for our advertising partners, that their logo is readable across all the different ways that the content is consumed.
Yeah.
So this is a great way to ensure that that's happening.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then how that kind of, so we've created the ad here, or we've edited sort of the partner information here, and then, let's see, you can see then how that ends up appearing consistently across. So here's
good size, good size logo.
I feel like this is great.
Goes well.
Yeah. So here it is on a sponsored piece of content.
And here you customized the kind of lead in there together with, instead of it was like the default was.
I think the default is. I think the default it might be sponsored by.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you've been with Bloomreach so many times that now they are they serve like a together with it, like
and then this is just the web version of a newsletter, but same setup here, same size as used here. So across the different places where it is distributed, we're maintaining what we've set up in one place in the partner document. So
So now we have like two completely independent editorial processes that just kind of meets in a very, very light touch moment. That's amazing.
And so the editorial team doesn't need to be fussed and shouldn't touch ads, which they don't. And the advertising team is able to have full controls over how the ads look within that context, and then they can push it to the editorial environments without sort of maintaining that balance and that integrity.
And then you treat events as content, which it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah, and that's sort of another piece kind of that is being worked out as well, because events also are typically done in partnership with our partners, and but unlike a lot of these other things, there may be more than one. So we're working out some ways to use Meteor to power that as well. So using that same kind of reference back to the same partner document, but working out a way to have more than one. That's been a big challenge, actually. So to come.
It's so cool to like for me, of course. It's such it's so cool to see, because I feel our dream was, of course, this to have this product that was easy to customize, where you can do everything that you absolutely need to, that's special to your way of working or your kinds of content, whereas we just take away all of the generic things that like everyone needs. But it was also cool to see, so of course the workflow stuff is amazing. That's kind of, we should probably build something for everyone that's similar to this. But then also I think that the logo thing, that's, I think, is an example of these kind of smaller things that would be unreasonable to do in most contexts, where I think because it's so easy to do these things that are very valuable.
They
But,
are, yeah. No, definitely, because it saves us from getting a call from ad ops saying, like, this is enormous, or you can't read this. Like, so that's really kind of helps put the power back in the hands of the...
But if it takes a couple of weeks to implement for developers, you probably do something else.
Yeah.
And you just live with it. Yeah.
No, that's true.
You'd have a checklist on like taped to a screen somewhere. Remember to check
And that's
it
how
on.
it was for a very long time,
Exactly.
truly, until it became something that we could support once and then can be reused over and over and over, but allows those controls for non-technical people that doesn't require us to step in and help out with that. So it's very user-friendly for them, but also saves a bit of time for us.
That's amazing. What's kind of next for you? Where do you want to go next?
As each brand is continuing to expand sort of the facets of themselves in terms of the product experiences and user experiences, we want to create this sort of central home base for the content creation for each of these brands. So whether it's podcast forward brands that are now creating events, or newsletter or web centric brands or content centric brands that are creating events or podcasts, we want to ensure that there's a consistent place that they can create that content, and ensuring that, we've added so much content and so many different facets of each brand into our studios over the last 4 years, making sure that those workflows are getting cleaned up, that we can continue to focus on our coworkers' experiences in the studio. So cleaning those up, streamlining, finding the specific components that work, collapsing the ones that don't work. So that's a big focus in, I'd say, the first half of this coming year.
Right. So that's kind of what like we keep talking about, like content velocity. Seems like that's kind of your year of content velocity, just optimizing what you're already doing.
Yeah, optimizing what we're doing. I think integrating more of what we're doing. So making sure, we have so many different things going on here, but it's not always clear that they're related to each other. So we've been working on, this is more of a front end than a back end thing so far, but we've been working on making sure that, so the Morning Brew website, for example, it started as the newsletter. It's also the website, but we do long form video, we do short video, and that's all part of the same brand. So we're doing more to make sure that that shows up on the website and make sure that you're kind of getting that symbiotic connection. So that's maybe more of like a strategy thing than a sanity thing for us at this point. We're doing kind of lightweight as we can, as Emily's going to show. We're doing just some embeds, some sort of lightweight ways to make that happen right now. So at least like, embedding directly from YouTube, embedding directly from Megaphone. But as we're kind of like learning a little bit more about how this is being used, how it's kind of helping to support the written content, there's definitely going to be some more integration with the studio directly as we do that. We've got interest from these teams in using the ad CMS as well, so we'll be digging into what we can do there.
That is so cool. Thank you for doing this. Super inspiring for me, but I'm sure for everyone who's planning to do anything. Like if you are reinventing your media brand, like listen to Erin and Emily.
Cool. Thanks for coming in, Simon.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.